All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is a Sunday, and here we are, as promised. Yesterday, when we tried to do the weekend review, we got the breaking news, right? We got the Maduro captured. I don't want to say arrested. I want to say captured. We got the Maduro captured breaking news, and Trump's press conference was on. So we decided to cover that instead. And then I told you guys that I would be back. I will come back on Sunday morning to do a show with you guys and go over the actual news. We're going to obviously talk more about Maduro because, I don't think there's really been any more developments. Reportedly he is in New York right now. And good morning to everybody. I see Truth Quest in the chat there. Good morning, Brad Fry. Good morning. Anner, canned corn. There we go. I like it. Canned corn. CannCon, I like Cannabis Conservative a little bit better, but canned corn, you got to eat corn, non-GMO. Of course, I think all corn grown in the U.S. at this point is GMO. So, yeah, we're going to get screwed with that. Hey, coming in from YouTube for extra credit. There you go. Smash that thumbs up, guys, if you have not done so already. A lot of stuff coming out. We've got all the wardrobe changes, right? That's what a lot of people are talking about. I saw a post this morning, and not to take away from the post, but they have like these 4 pictures, and I think you're seeing a lot of AI pictures. So there's a couple ones that are absolutely, we're told to be genuine. The one of we're getting a lot of funny ones. We got one of, and this one is purportedly real. The one of him sitting next to 2 agents giving the thumbs up in handcuffs, just like classic. Like, what? Who does that? You're afraid you're going to be going to prison for the rest of your life, potentially. You just got overthrown as a sovereign leader. You got overthrown by another country that raided your country, and you're smiling and giving the thumbs up and walking down the hallways and telling people, "Oh yeah, have a great day, Happy New Year." Let me see if I can find that one real quick. That one was pretty epic. Yeah, here it is. Let me get this pulled up here. Some of these are just really funny, and oh man, this one's gonna have the obligatory commercial. Stand by. Oh, there's an ad. There we go. You got the ads. I don't know, you tell me. You guys can't even hear that, so it just dawned on me. Alright, so let me share my screen here, and, bada bing, bada boom. Alright, there we go. So this is Maduro at the DEA headquarters in New York, the, New York DEA district. Good night, have a great day. Good night, Happy New Year. Oh, shit, I'm not sharing. There we go. Sorry, guys. Early for me still. Good night. What does he say right there? Like, he says, like, something about Donald Trump. Sounds like he says good night, something Donald Trump. Good night. Good night. Good night. Happy New Year. He looks very, very indicted, as Chris Paul would say. He looks totally indicted. Totally indicted. New case, take him out. Don't take him out. That is the key right there. That guy's got more dirt on the globalist deep state than just about anybody. Allegedly. That's what we're supposed to say. All right, you're out of here, buddy. Sorry. You're not going to sit here and talk about bowel movements on my show. Yeah, so we've got that picture. What else we got? Where's the thumbs up picture? Let me see if I can find the thumbs up picture real quick. Maduro thumbs up should be an instant hit. Let's see. There it is. Look at that. Instant hit. This is my favorite one. Oh, he looks totally indicted, man. He looks totally indicted. Third costume change. That is legit. I mean, there are some costume changes, but there's one going around Let me see if I can find it real quick. There's one going around that I remember seeing the original posting of this, and I was like, "Oh, that's crazy." And it says it's AI. So these are, and I don't want to call the person out, but I guess their name's going to come up if I do this. So, all right, here we go. So you got this one. This one's President Trump put this one out on the USS Iwo Jima. This is one of the ones that's allegedly AI created. And I saw, the original post, and it said specifically this is AI, that they created this picture. This one's supposedly legitimate, and this one it just reeks of AI. This one, the blood, like where did the blood come from? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not. As far as we know, he had just gotten done with a meeting with Chinese diplomats, which is also fascinating in and of itself. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know. A lot of stuff coming out still. I'm gonna leave this up to you guys here if you want to. New case said read above. Okay, my bad, my bad. I didn't think you were that far off base, man. I thought you were kind of just don't put him in Epstein's cell. Okay, I got you, brother. I got you, man. I didn't know where you were going with that, and so this is a very very contentious subject. We had a dinner last night and a birthday party for my wife's grandma 100th birthday, and family from all over the country is in town, and varying political opinions, but we got into a lot of this last night. I was kind of walking them through this whole narrative from our perspective, from my perspective, and they seemed receptive to it, so that's a good thing. But you still have a lot of these people that and down here in South Florida, I live like literally, and I've said this before, Ash's co-host on her Colorado show lives down here. He lives like 5 miles from me, and he's in the heart of like quote unquote Venezuela country. Like I remember back in 2013 when Maduro first won and Chavez died, and Maduro won, there was all these cars driving around with hashtag SOS Venezuela on them. Like they took shoe polish and wrote on their cars hashtag SOS Venezuela. Now these are all people that are living in a little city here called Weston, Florida, and especially back around 2013, that city was and it still is, but it's a very affluent city. It is a town. It is very well-to-do, huge homeowners association fees. You're talking, I mean, neighborhoods that have multi-million-dollar homes. Granted, they do have some smaller townhomes, but like townhomes there go for like $700,000. It's a very, very expensive neighborhood to live in. And, through my experience, most of the Venezuelans and South Americans broadly that live there are running. Yeah, there you go. Jackie recalls. I remember seeing SOS Venezuela in Orlando too. It was like a big thing. Like this took Florida. Florida is very, very much corrupted by the Venezuela CIA narratives, because we have a lot of Hispanic people down here, from Cubans, a lot of Cubans. Remember, wet foot, dry foot. We got a lot of Cubans, and so we are particularly susceptible to those narratives. We're also told things like Maduro is a socialist, which he is. He is, but in the terms of which Maduro is referred to as a socialist. So 2013 was when Maduro first won his first election against a guy named, I think, Capriles. We're going to get into some coverage from 2013 on that election. But here's the thing. So there's always been, kind of this deep state war in Venezuela led by the CIA against, the local regimes, in this case, Maduro and Chavez. And if you've ever read, and I've talked about this quite a few times, but if you've ever read the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman, you kind of understand how they use economics to kind of upset a local populace. And let's get into this one article here because it kind of touches on this a little bit. So this is, I want to read we're going to cover two articles from the Washington Post and then just a headline. But these articles are written within 5 days of each other. So this is the first one. Nicolas Maduro narrowly wins presidential election in Venezuela. Now that is a well-rounded, nonpartisan, unbiased headline from the Washington Post, the CIA mouthpiece. And this was right after the election there. They call it the socialist transformation, which I think is interesting. It says, calling himself the son of Chavez, Maduro, the interim president, won a slim victory after a brief but nasty presidential campaign in which he had pledged to complete the socialist transformation of this oil-rich nation that began under the man he served loyally for 20 years. Now, the socialist transformation of an oil-rich nation, those resources are under state control is what they're getting at. And, they are one of, if not the most oil-rich nation in the world. And we're going to play a clip on that here in a second. But let's keep reading here because this is where it gets interesting, how Washington Post puts out this narrative initially, and then in 5 days, they're going to completely backtrack on it. It says Chavez's death plunged his fervent followers into mourning and gave Maduro, who had been the vice president, the potent sympathy vote in a country where millions had come to view Chavez as a father figure who never fails to reward them with gifts. That is a really interesting way for the Washington Post, again, the CIA mouthpiece, to portray Hugo Chavez as a father figure who never fails to reward them with gifts. Millions had come to view him as that. Millions. Now, you got to remember, Venezuela, there's only 29 million votes in an election, 25 to 29, as opposed to the United States, where Joe Biden totally got 81 real lawful American votes. And there's, anywhere from 120 to 140 million people that vote in an election. So, you're talking about a voting block that is 5 times smaller than the United States. So when you're talking about millions of people, saying that, it's not factual. Well, it could be factual. Them saying it does not make it factual, right? This is just their way of kind of giving you a micro view of a macro instance. And so, by telling you that there's millions of people that love Chavez, that doesn't necessarily mean that Chavez was a widely loved person. But reading on, it says days before the vote, polls showed Maduro holding a double-digit lead over Capriles. Capriles lost to Chavez in an October election, dispatched handily despite a long and hard-fought campaign. So this isn't the first time in this election that I guess they've met. Is this the first time? Because it's saying that they lost this election here, and this was in April of 2016. Let me just fact check myself on this real quick before I look really stupid. Did Maduro run against Capriles twice in elections? Let me make sure I'm correct on this, because that's the way I'm reading it. Okay, so it says they faced each other once in a presidential election in April of 2014. Capriles had also been a presidential candidate in 2012, but the race was against Chavez, not Maduro. After 2013, Maduro's later presidential elections involved other opposition figures. Okay, so it sounds like Washington Post might be referring to the race against Chavez, perhaps. I don't know. I'm sorry. It does say Chavez. Guys, it's early, man. Well, it's not really that early, but I have not had a full cup of coffee yet, so bear with me. So Capriles lost to Chavez in an October election, dispatched handily despite a long and hard-fought campaign. Jump down here. Maduro frequently warned, and just listen to, again, the only reason I'm playing this is because this was the Washington Post sentiment on Maduro, Chavez, and Venezuela back in 2013, so 12 years ago. Keep in mind, this is during the Obama period. This is, at the beginning or towards the end of Obama's second term, 2016. President Trump is on the political radar at this point, right? He's the Republican nominee. And so this is what's being put out there. Maduro frequently warned that a vote for Capriles would be akin to treason, supporting a diabolical opposition of oligarchs and swindlers who would pillage the country with their masters from the United States, which the government here calls the empire. That is fascinating. So again, remember, I mentioned earlier that the Confessions of an Economic Hitman. And in that book, you have the author telling you about how he was basically a spy that would go into these third world nations, deal with either the leadership or the oligarchs, and set up infrastructure to manipulate and benefit from their resources for the globalists, mainly United States, you know, European Union, et cetera. And basically manipulate these countries into a way where the oligarchs and the World Economic Forum globalists would benefit the most from this, and it would leave the country essentially in ruins. And if a leader pushed back against this, then they would forever destroy that leader until they were either gone or arrested or assassinated or whatever the case might be. And so it sounds like right here, Washington Post is acknowledging that is Maduro's position, that they are subject to this quote unquote hitman, economic hitman. So let me just read that again now with that kind of context. Maduro frequently warned that a vote for Capriles would be akin to treason, supporting a diabolical opposition of oligarchs and swindlers who would pillage the country with their masters from the United States, which the government here calls the empire. Reading on, it starts talking about some anecdotals. And these are people that are, kind of in the suburbs, so to speak, rural Venezuela. These are not people in Caracas and the main cities. Yes, I voted at 6 a.m. I'm going for the Chavismo, which is the nickname for Chavez. Who else, or, for his faction? Who else would we vote for? We're not going to vote for the empire and see everything fall apart. Another Maduro supporter spoke of how Chavez had transformed Venezuela for better so that people like him in poor districts would have a voice. I want to see Nicolas Maduro in that chair of our commander. May he take that mandate we're giving him and work the legacy that our commander Chavez left behind. Okay. In middle-class neighborhoods of Caracas, though, voters spoke about a dysfunctional economy with the highest official inflation rate in the hemisphere, food shortages, and constant power blackouts in provincial towns. Many spoke about the rampant crime that has made Caracas one of the world's most dangerous cities and state interventions in business that have made Venezuela more reliant than ever on its oil exports. Venezuela is has one of the largest oil reserves in the world. Why would you not be dependent on your oil exports? Again, this sounds like, and a lot of the problems that you were seeing in Caracas, the food shortages, the power shortages, all that was inflicted by Western quote unquote democracies, right? This was inflicted by sanctions from the United States, sanctions from Canada, from the European Union, from other, first world, NATO aligned, EU type countries, the globalists, right? They punished Chavez, and they punished Maduro by sanctioning them. And where are you going to feel sanctions the most? You're going to feel it in the main cities where they're dependent on the grocery stores, et cetera. Out in the suburbs, in the rural parts of the country, they're a little more self-sufficient. They can grow their own food. They can have their own livestock. They can, take care of themselves. So they don't feel the effects of, grocery stores not having their shelves stocked, and that kind of thing. But yeah, the point I'm making here is a lot of what happened in Venezuela was destabilization at the hands of the globalists. It says another pro-Capriles voter, a lawyer named Maria Sanchez, said that she wanted a new government that would end the deep-seated, sometimes violent polarization that was one of Chavez's legacies. She also said the country will need a dramatic restructuring, something akin to President Roosevelt's New Deal. And Sanchez said all Venezuelans must participate. It won't be the work of just one person. That is a interesting statement. Chavez is the guy that's violently polarizing. The country is going to need to get away from him and embrace the bureaucracy, right? That's what the New Deal was. It ushered in the bureaucratic state in the United States. That's what we need. Is we need to fill this with bureaucracy. Bureaucrats need to, engulf Venezuelan politics, and it's not just going to be one person that can do that. I mean, that is I don't know. I think that's pretty globalist right there. And invoking the New Deal in Venezuela, a Venezuelan that is very familiar with Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal and how beneficial it was to us Americans. It's so great. What did we get out of that? We got Social Security. Isn't that great that we can put away so much money throughout our lifetime to get pennies back in return in a system that's been raped by politicians and pillaged by politicians and their special interests, so much so that we might not even get what we're supposed to get back. At least that's what we're told. All right, guys. Nice little laid back show. Sunday morning, right? Wife's still sleeping, so I'm trying to be a little bit quiet. I let her sleep in. It was a long night. She was partying with her cousins, and that's how that goes. So let them do their thing. This is how quickly the sentiment over at Washington Post changed in just a couple of days. And this was, so the first article is April 15th. This one here was April 19th. And now we've got Maduro sworn in as Venezuelan president after disputed election. And in the middle of that, we had Maduro shoves aside democracy in Venezuela. This was literally a day after that last one from the editorial board, right? And we know that the Washington Post editorial board is a bunch of flaming leftists. So find that interesting too. The editorial board comes in and all of a sudden you go from Washington Post reporting on this kind of fairly, at least the headline's fair, right? He won the election in a close race. That's the news. That's the story. Everything else outside of that, they're injecting their own opinion. They're injecting their propaganda. They're injecting their own manipulation. They're driving a narrative. They're influencing you in a particular direction. It just so happened that first direction is the direction that, outside of the major cities in Venezuela, the people wildly are sympathetic and favorable to Maduro and the Chavez revolution, the Bolivarian revolution, as they call it. But in the cities where they're most affected by foreign influence through sanctions and other trade policies, they're the ones that don't want to see this. They want the globalists. They want to be able to sell their resources to America because they're going to make so much more money if they do that. But in doing so, they don't want Venezuela selling the resources. They want outside entities coming in and doing it to sell these resources. And that is one of the things that is slightly concerning about President Trump's speech yesterday, is that, he's talking about going in and building the infrastructure and everything for the oil in Venezuela. Sure, that's great, but you got to make sure that the conditions are favorable to Venezuelans, right? You can't. I don't want to see us go in there and say, hey, we're taking all your oil and you guys are going to get chicken scratch for it. It's your oil. It's your oil. I'd say the same thing for us. I don't think Russia and China should be coming in here and taking U.S. oil and we get pennies on the dollar back in return for it. Whether it's through fees, that export fees, whatever the case might be. I don't want foreign entities coming in and taking advantage of our resources. And for that, let's go ahead and let me get these cleared out here real quick. So this post has been going pretty viral, and this is from Jack Ryan on Amazon Prime, and great show. It's a wildly entertaining show if you've ever watched it. I think they did like how many seasons? They might have done like 5 seasons of it. It's very good. I love that actor. What's his name? John Kaczynski. He's such a great actor. I love him as an actor, from The Office to 13 Hours. And then in Jack Ryan, he was perfect for Jack Ryan, almost Ben Affleck-esque. But what's really interesting to me with this is that you're seeing the narrative pre-deployed in the mainstream, right? In Hollywood, Iran, the Midnight Hammer in Iran, that was Top Gun Maverick. That was Top Gun Maverick. But it also had a little bit of A New Hope, right, from Star Wars. President Trump, I think it was President Trump himself that came out and said, we shot a missile perfectly down the air shaft of the nuclear facility. And we shot it blind because there was clouds and everything else. We shot it blind. Well, I mean, that's literally the end of A New Hope as Luke Skywalker is flying his X-Wing down the little gunnels of the Death Star, and he goes to put on his targeting device, and Obi-Wan, Luke, use the Force, and he lifts up his little thing and shoots it right down the shaft of the Death Star, down into the heart of the Death Star, and boom, the whole thing blows up. And so you see these, and it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. But okay, so I'm going off on a tangent here. But let's go ahead and play this.
What would you assume is the most major threat on the world stage? Anybody, just call it out. You don't have to raise your hand.
Definitely.
So what would you assume is the most major threat on the world stage?
Russia.
Definitely Russia. That's confident. I like it. Who says Russia?
Definitely Russia, because we got to make sure that we reinforce how dangerous that horrible dictator, that communist Vladimir Putin is.
Anybody agree with her? Hands? Okay, great. Who else?
China.
Stop yelling at me, but China is a good answer. Anybody? Who else? China?
North Korea.
North Korea. Any North Korea takers? And
all right. So we got the big three. Missing Iran, ironically, That is not lost on me. That Iran, I don't think Iran is mentioned there. So you got Russia, China, and North Korea. President Trump's friends with all those leaders. He refers to Putin and Xi all the time as friends. He crossed the 38th parallel into North Korea. He wrote the love letters back and forth with Kim Jong-un. And he showed Kim Jong-un, how this is going to go. Was it Un or Il? Il's in now. No, Il was the old one. Yeah. Anyways, I can remember that back. What was it, like 2019, maybe? I can't remember the exact year, but he was writing back and forth saying, hey, I'd like to come over there. Yeah, let's have some talks. And then out of nowhere, Trump's like, yeah, this guy's not serious about making a deal. I'm done with him. I'm not doing it. And everybody in the mainstream media was like, oh my God, he's going to start a nuclear war. North Korea is going to go to war with us. And then Kim Jong-un comes back and is like, hey, my beloved President Trump, my good friend, come on over here. Let's make buddy. And they've been friends ever since. They call them the love letters, right? The letters they wrote back and forth to each other. Trump is crushing all of the CIA narratives, right? And don't think for a second, like I love the Jack Ryan series as pure entertainment with maybe a little bit of kind of predictive programming tied up into it. And when I think it was this week where we were talking about Black Hawk Down and Mogadishu, and I talked about Frank Grimes from Black Hawk Down. Well, his real name is not Frank Grimes, but the DOD made the company, the production company, change the name because the real the real soldier in that story ended up getting convicted of like raping a child or something, pedophilia. And so they made him change the name because they don't want to tarnish the story by, tying up a person that's been convicted of such a heinous crime with this, heroic American story. So they changed the name. That's the kind of influence that they have on this. Like the military and the intelligence have offices that are specifically dealing with books, movies, TV shows. It's almost like Obama legalized this with the Smith Modernization Act for the State Department to get involved in propaganda. And, you see something like this, and the CIA absolutely, in my opinion, I believe that they absolutely had liaisons that were attached to the production company of this show and are guiding what they want to say. Like they very much had influence over this particular script right here. So let's keep going.
Venezuela? Anybody? No? Oh, yeah. One guy in the back. A little worried about Venezuela. Everybody's cool with Venezuela? No threat? Okay.
Okay, so he starts this off by saying, who's the biggest threat? Russia, China, North Korea. 2 out of the 3 are nuclear capable or nuclear ready. One of them is arguably on the brink of nuclear weapons. That's what we're told, right? You don't hear much about Venezuela and nuclear weapons. You don't hear much about Venezuela and, direct military threats. Obviously, you can make an argument for the narco trafficking and everything else, but you don't hear much about military threats to the United States from Venezuela.
Let me ask you this. Which one of these places can claim to have the largest oil deposit on the planet? More than Saudi, more than Iran?
Oh, there's Iran.
Wow. Okay, what about things like gold? More than all the mines in Africa combined? The fact is that Venezuela is arguably the single greatest resource of oil and minerals on the planet. So, why is this country in the midst of one of the greatest humanitarian crises in modern history? Let's meet President Nicolas Reyes.
Why are they in the midst of one of the greatest humanitarian crises in history? Because of the globalist, because of the sanctions you guys have placed on the country, because he won't allow your oil explorers to come in there. What do they call them? What's the term for oil exploration? What do they call it? I can't think of the term off the top of my head, because they're not allowed to come in there.
After rising to power on a wave of nationalist pride, in a mere 6 years, this guy has crippled the national economy by half. He has raised the poverty rate by almost 400%. Luckily for the rest of us, he's up for re-election. So, who's running against him? This is Gloria Bonalde. Now, Gloria
Maria Corina Machado
is a history professor turned activist. She's running against.
She's a history teacher turned activist. Is her activist organization called SUMATE, which is funded by the U.S. Agency for International Development and the National Endowment for Democracy?
Him on a social justice platform and on the strength of, in my humble opinion, just not being an asshole. Analyst predictions, as of today, have the chances of Venezuela's total economic collapse at 87%. On the news, they'll call it a crisis. But on the world stage, they'll call it a failed state.
Oh.
If you've never heard that term, other examples of a failed state in recent history are Yemen, Iraq, and Syria.
Yemen, Iraq, and Syria. We had no influence over those failed states. None whatsoever.
If that's not bad enough news for you, well, Venezuela is also the only one of these places within 30-minute range from the U.S. of next-gen nuclear missiles. You will not hear about any of this on the news because the biggest players on the world stage do not want you to. To them, unstable governments are nothing more than the greatest of opportunities. So, Russia, China, can never be the most major threat until countries like Venezuela leave the door open to our very own backyard.
I remember this episode. This is the Cuban Missile Crisis. Oh, Venezuela's open to Russia putting nuclear weapons in Venezuela to hit America. Do you know how many countries we have bases in that can directly hit Russia with nuclear weapons? That is so effing laughable to me that they actually said that. Let me just ask. Let's just play with perplexity on this one for just a second here. Let's play with perplexity. How many military bases does the U.S. have that could potentially, let me rephrase that are in range of our nuclear capabilities? I don't know if it's going to answer this. Oh, it's thinking. The United States maintains nuclear capabilities through its triad of land-based intercontinental ballistic missiles. 3 Air Force bases host okay, come on. I just want to know in foreign countries. I want to know how many bases in foreign countries that the U.S. occupies could hit Russia with nukes. Pretty much all of NATO. Every NATO country is pretty much within the range, especially the eastern ones. The most recent additions to NATO. All right, it's not going to tell me. See, it's gonna skate around this one. So screw that. All right, apologize. Oh, I didn't realize I didn't have it up on the screen. It's an early day, guys. It's an early day. All right. Yeah. So now we're in the Venezuelan missile crisis. So again, I was playing with Perplexity this morning, trying to figure out how I can, not figuring out how I can, but I wanted to. Yesterday, we started to read over the indictment of Maduro, right? Just briefly reading through it, and the unsealed indictment. You guys can read it. I heard John and Chris on DPH last night. I was listening this morning in the background as I was prepping, and John was saying that he went through and read this indictment, which is a superseding indictment to a superseding indictment to the original indictment, with the first superseding indictment coming in 2020. And he was saying that most of the co-defendants from case to case have changed. They're not the same co-defendants, which is very interesting. The other thing is John had said, I think, that in the first one, Tren de Aragua is not mentioned in the first superseding indictment. They are in this one. And then I think Chris, and this is a point that I think Chris made on Friday on Badlands Daily with me, they keep talking about the Tren de Aragua and how Maduro emptied the prisons and sent them all to the United States. And Maduro has told Trump, hey, I gave your agencies the files on this. Like, you have the reports on this stuff and how this occurred. And it's not at my hands. It's at the Biden's hands. And again, as Chris Paul said last night, who put Tren de Aragua in prison is the question. For them to be let out, they had to be put in prison. So who did that? Maduro. And so when you go back and you look at this indictment here, I asked Perplexity, I said, what does this indictment list as the physical evidence against Maduro specifically? The indictment lists no physical evidence directly against Nicolas Maduro. Allegations rely on witness accounts and descriptions of events rather than tangible items like seized drugs or documents linked to Maduro. For instance, between 2006 and 2008, as foreign minister, Maduro allegedly sold diplomatic passports to traffickers and arranged diplomatic cover for planes carrying drug proceeds, based on reported actions like calling the Venezuelan embassy in Mexico. Okay. Specific overt acts from 2004 to 2015, Maduro and his wife allegedly trafficked previously seized cocaine using military escorts and colectivos gangs, including ordering violence, but no seizures or forensics are cited. Who had previously seized that cocaine? Let's see if it actually says who had previously seized that cocaine. Oh, it doesn't. This is just links to the indictment. Let me see if I search real quick. Previously. No, it doesn't work. I'm not sharing that tab anyways. Okay, so reading on. In September 2013, after French seizure of 1.3 tons of cocaine from Makissia Airport, Maduro convened a meeting to criticize the route and authorized arrests for cover-up. For the cover-up. The cocaine itself was not tied physically to him. So again, we're not getting any evidence. The closest thing we have to evidence so far, it sounds like, is previously trafficked cocaine or previously seized cocaine that was trafficked and somehow got its way back to Maduro. And Maduro allegedly used colectivos gangs to traffic it into the country. Also, he put Tren de Aragua in prison. Other claims like moving cocaine loads as a National Assembly member or partnering with narco-terrorists describe patterns without physical exhibits. This is going to be a case of hearsay. This is going to be a trial of hearsay. And President Trump, he prefaced this. The document presents narrative allegations from intelligence cooperating witnesses, i.e. guilty pleas like Hugo Carvajal Barrios, dude, the day that this letter from Barrios was released, I said immediately, this is what they're going to do to get Maduro. They're going to Juan Orlando Hernandez Maduro. And intercepted communications, but omits photos, drug samples, financial records, or weapons directly attributable to Maduro. Seized cocaine mentioned, 5.5 tons in Mexico in 2006, 1.3 tons in France. Involves associates, not physical proof of his involvement. So what the hell is this indictment about? Again, I fully believe, my personal belief, that what we saw this weekend was an extraction, not a capture. It was an extraction. And I think we're going to see that. I don't know how this works. If President Trump, a month or two ago, ahead of the Honduras election, President Trump says, I'm pardoning Juan Orlando Hernandez, the former Honduran president, who was put in prison by a regime in a trial with no evidence. The only evidence against Juan Orlando Hernandez was testimony. And trust me, bro, the people that benefited from Hernandez, the people that benefited from testifying against Hernandez were in prison already and got drastically reduced sentences, to the point of, 2 out of the 3, I think, were let go. And the other one is probably free by now. And so the same thing is being set up for Maduro right now. You have Hugo Carvajal. There was another one that came out and said the same thing. And what's the narrative? That he's been rigging elections across the globe for years now. Again, 2013, Maduro wins his first election. 2014, Smartmatic is taken over by globalists, Lord Malik Brown, Sir Nigel Knowles, David G.M. Paola, the only American, I think, on the board, who also happens to be run a hedge fund, essentially an investment firm full of British oligarchs. That is who runs it now. And so, again, this is something I've harped on for a long time. And I think, again, Chris Paul said it very well, eloquently last night when he said, Venezuela has had this power to manipulate global elections for all this time, but there's still the pariah that's being sanctioned by everybody and is on the verge of being called a failed state, right? That makes no sense. That makes absolutely no sense. If I had the power to control elections and go about doing it unscathed, I would rule the world. My country wouldn't be, the quote unquote shithole that we're told in our mainstream media that it is. That's just the way it goes. That makes no sense if that's the case. But on the contrary, if Maduro was privy to the globalist ability to steal elections at whim, and they've been doing it everywhere else, they stay hands off on Venezuela, or they keep Maduro in power to appease him and keep him happy until he's no longer useful, and they find a way to get rid of him. I still think there was a race to get to Maduro between President Trump and the deep state CIA. That's, again, this is my personal opinion, but President Trump announces operations in Venezuela, which is unheard of. Hey, I'm going to announce covert operations in Venezuela by the CIA. Like, what? They're supposed to operate in the shadows. We're not supposed to see all of that, right? But President Trump announces it, something we've known for this whole time, and he just puts it out there. Then this week, last week, we get this story that the CIA drone struck a port in Venezuela. And that's like the alarm bells go off. Hey, they're at the front door. We got to get moving on this. Again, this is just my take. There's nothing out there right now that can make it one way or the other. There's just so much information and mis and disinformation and deliberately misleading information. It's a huge psychological operation that we're witnessing right now. It's absolutely massive. And it's fun to sit here and kind of theorize and talk about these things and what could potentially be happening. But, instead, you've got people in MAGA that are like full bore, like, hey, we took the dictator out. The CIA, they took him out, and we got to trust the CIA guys. They're telling us that Venezuela has been stealing global elections and benefiting it. No, like not at all. Not at all. Name one thing that's great about Venezuela right now other than their potential. They haven't realized that potential. It's all Maduro's fault, though. It is an absolute crazy psychological operation that we are witnessing, and it is a lot of fun to watch it. But at the same time, take it all with a grain of salt. Let's see. Where do we want to go next? Do I have anything more on Venezuela? Bear with me for 2 seconds, guys. I don't think I do. I don't believe so, no. All right, so we are actually going to get into last week's news at this point in time. And I'm thinking, you know what? Let's go ahead and hit a sponsor here real quick. And let's talk about our friends over at Technisport gaming chairs. Guys, are you looking for a comfortable but unique option for your gaming setup? Doesn't have to be a gaming setup. It could just be a comfortable chair to sit behind a computer like I do all day. Check out TechnisportUSA.com. With a wide range of ergonomic chairs and an array of colors, you will definitely bring your setup to the next level. Always comfy, never boring. Technisport. Use promo code RUMBLE for 10% off your entire order. All right. I love the gaming chairs, man. This is my second one in 5 years. This is my second one. My first one, I wore that thing down all the way to its very end. And here we are. All right, so let's jump into news. First, we'll go over to the Ukraine-Russia story from this week, which is also kind of interesting that Ukraine-Russia, as it's kind of winding down, so to speak. It's winding down, but it's hitting like bumps. It's always darkest before the dawn, right? It's not lost on me that this is happening at about the same time that Trump and Venezuela is really kicking off. Here's President Trump talking about Vladimir Putin and his conversation with him before his meeting with Zelensky.
Russia's going to be helping. Russia wants to see Ukraine succeed.
Oh, no.
It sounds a little strange, but I was explaining to the president, President Putin was very generous in his feeling toward Ukraine succeeding, including supplying energy, electricity, and other things at very low prices. So a lot of good things came out of that call today. But they were in the works for 2 weeks with Steve and with Jared and Marco and everybody.
Did Russia agree, or did Putin agree to a ceasefire to allow a referendum to take place?
Not a ceasefire. And that's one of the points that we're working on right now. No, not a ceasefire. He feels that, look, they're fighting and to stop, and then if they have to start again, which is a possibility, he doesn't want to be in that position. I understand that position. Russia's going to be helping. Russia wants to see Ukraine succeed.
Okay, so that's not the clip I thought it was. But, before President Trump met with Zelensky last week, he got a call from Putin, or he had a call with Putin, 2.5 hour long call. And again, that's where the real deal is being made. The deal is not being made between Trump and Zelensky or Putin and Zelensky or Putin and Zelensky. It's being made between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Zelensky is just kind of the puppet in all of this. Putin was this was actually before they struck. I believe this was before they allegedly struck his palace in Novgorod. But this was Putin talking about, if Zelensky wants to keep going at this way, if Ukraine wants to keep, escalating and enacting hostilities, then we'll do it. And this is in Russian, so I'm going to read this. He says, "We see that smart people also appeared in the West. They recommend the authorities in Kyiv to accept decent conditions of ending the conflict and offer good, basic conditions for ensuring Ukraine's long-term security, restoration of relations with the Russian Federation, and economic recovery of Ukraine." But we see that, unfortunately, the ringleaders of the Kyiv regime are in no hurry today to solve this conflict peacefully. If the authorities in Kyiv do not want to solve the issue in a peaceful way, we will reach of all of the goals that are set in the course of the special military operation by military means. So, in other words, Putin is saying if Zelensky and Ukraine are going to continually run back to the EU, to the Keir Starmers, which is who Zelensky talked with before the Trump meeting, if they're going to continuously run back to the EU and hope for support so that they can get leverage, so that they can play the cards for just another couple months, right? We need another couple $1 billion to keep this war going. We're almost there, though. We could win this war. No, you can't. No, you can't. Then Putin says, hell with you. We're gonna go no holds barred. No holds barred. President Trump also had this to say about the bombing of the presidential palace in Novgorod.
Yeah, I don't like it. It's not good. I heard about it this morning. You know who told me about it? President Putin told me about it. Early in the morning, he said he was attacked. It's no good. It's no good. Don't forget, the Tomahawks. I stopped the Tomahawks. I didn't want that. Because we're talking about, it's a delicate period of time. This is not the right time. It's one thing to be offensive, because they were offensive. It's another thing to attack his house. It's not the right time to do any of that, and can't do it. And I learned about it from President Putin today. I was very angry about it. What? Well, it came out. Well, we'll find out. I mean, you're saying maybe the attack didn't take place. It's possible too, I guess. But President Putin told me this morning it did.
One question, Mr. President. Can you expound on the importance?
All right. And then they end the last question. Can you expand on the importance of the U.S.-Israel security relationship? But it was pretty interesting when Trump says, I heard from Putin, and the news asks him, well, don't you have your own intelligence services? And he says, well, yeah, I do. And are you saying the story's fake? It might be fake. It could be fake. Or it could just be that, the U.S. intelligence agencies are not functioning to their fullest capabilities in Ukraine. I personally, I don't know what to make of this. There's a story that came out this morning, or was it this morning or yesterday, that Putin, that Zelensky. Well, let me cross that story when we get there. Let's jump into this one here from RT. So again, this is essentially Russian state media here. 24 killed in Ukrainian strike on Russian New Year's celebration, according to the governor. At least 24 people were killed, 50 injured in a Ukrainian drone strike on a cafe and a hotel during a New Year's Eve celebration in the Black Sea coastal village of Korli, the governor of Russia's Kherson region said. Now, that triggers a lot of the people that have the little blue and yellow flag in their Twitter profile and their X profile, because they claim that the Kherson region is still part of Ukraine. It's not part of Russia, but Russia says it is part of Russia. Interesting. They did vote in the referendum in 2022. I don't quote me on I think it was 2022. Might have been right before that. Shortly before midnight, after a recon drone surveyed the area, the Kherson region governor, Vladimir Saldo, said that 3 unmanned aerial vehicles hit the crowded venue, triggering massive fires. 1 child was among those killed, unfortunately. The government said the attack can only be compared to the May 24th Odessa massacre. It's right around the time of the Maidan. Kherson, Zaporizhia, Donetsk, Luhansk, and joined Russia in the fall of 2022 as a result of a local referendum. So there it is. Okay, so it was 2022. I was correct. Fall of 2022, they joined in local referendums. This is the same thing Crimea did in 2015 when they voted unanimously to join the Russian Federation. And by the way, I talk about this all the time. They were polled during the vote and 1 year later and 5 years later. And every single poll, we're talking Gallup polls. We're not talking about, Russian polls, right? In all of the polls, Gallup, there was another, I think, German pollster that went in there and did a poll. They're like 95% happier under Russians than they were under Ukrainians. It's almost like people want to be with their own ethnic people. From Politico, this is the newest update, and this I have not yet covered. Zelensky plans to remove another top spy, SBU's Malyuk. It says Zelensky is planning to remove Vasyl Malyuk as head of the security service of Ukraine. Quote, there are attempts to remove Malyuk, but nothing has been decided yet, says a Ukrainian official. Talks are still going on. But if Malyuk is out of SBU, this will seriously weaken Ukraine's ability to protect itself. The official was granted anonymity to discuss the matter. Malyuk is in his place, and quote, Malyuk is in his place, and the results of the secret security service prove it. It was he who turned the SBU into an effective special service that conducts unique special operations and gives Ukraine strong, quote unquote, cards at the negotiating table. It sounds to me like after this weekend, after the attack on Putin, after the attack in the Kherson region, it seems like there's a little bit of a change in atmosphere for Zelensky. Comes out and fires the guy at SBU, that's their equivalent, like a CIA type secret intelligence agency. They work hand in hand with the CIA, in fact, and I think that's partially the reason why Russia invaded, among other reasons. But Zelensky's apparently ousting this guy, the guy that's responsible for all those attacks inside of Russia. He probably is the guy that set the car bomb on the Russian general a couple weeks ago. Who knows? Not set it, but he put the plan in place. I don't think he personally went and did it. Malyuk, 42, has been managing the SBU since 2023. He has overseen some of the agency's high-profile assassinations and most daring special operations inside Russia, like the 2025 Operation Spiderweb, in which Ukrainian drones hit Russia's strategic bombers on several protected airfields, causing $7 billion in damage to Russian military aviation. Now, what are the odds that this is the guy that ordered the attack on, or not ordered, but orchestrated the attack on Putin's residence in Novgorod, right? And as soon as, what did we see this weekend before this announcement? We get this totally drawn out Hollywood production of a Russian general and an American general, and handing him the chips, right? The chips that were in the Ukrainian drones. We got the video of the drones on the ground, the crash drones, but handing him the chips of the drones and saying, here you go. This is all the information you need about where these drones originated from, and it's in Ukraine, and they're intact. We're giving it to your military. And then what do you see? Zelensky turns around and ousts the guy that was in charge of the SBU that was conducting these types of operations. I think that is a pretty good indicator, assuming it's true. Anonymity is a very deliberate, very peculiar word. I hate anonymous sources, but I guess I understand it. But you could, that source could be completely and totally made up, right? There could be no source that said that, but let's assume there is. To me, that would point to Zelensky seeing the writing on the wall that they're about to get caught as trying to assassinate Vladimir Putin. And I think that this war is getting very close to ending now, as these types of things come to light. I also think there's a possibility that there is some correlation between Venezuela and, yes, Nukes. I have been nailing anonymity. I actually talked about that yesterday at dinner, how I couldn't say it for so long. And I'd be driving in the car, guys, and I'd be like, anonymity, 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 Anonymity. I didn't actually do that, but it's a pretty funny thought to see me driving in a car just repeating that word over and over again. But I didn't actually do that. But yeah, I've been working on it. But anyways, I do think there could be some correlation here between Russia, Ukraine, and America, Venezuela. And people are freaking out saying President Trump doesn't have the power to declare war in Venezuela, and they're absolutely right. The precedent for extracting them was set in 1990, ironically on January 3rd, when we extracted Noriega from Panama in an invasion, quick invasion. And I think President Trump will be fine. I don't think we're going to war with Venezuela. We might occupy and ensure that Delcy Rodriguez has everything she needs in place. But now that we've done that, now that we've extracted Maduro, who could be, a big time state's witness against the globalists, against the election manipulation, against the economic manipulation, drug trafficking, dark money, all this stuff. He has a wealth of information on all of this stuff. You are now seeing kind of the okay for Russia to finish the war in Ukraine, for Ukraine to finish the war against Russia, and start to bring in the golden age. Right? It's 2026. The golden age needs to be upon us. I don't know. I think that we might see Ukraine start to wind down pretty quickly from this moment forward. What else do we have here? Let's see. Oh, this is the video that I alluded to a moment ago. The handing over of the chip.
Я пригласил вас по важному вопросу, хотим вас проинформировать. Мы нашли обломки беспилотных летательных аппаратов, осуществлявших данную атаку. В ряде этих беспилотных летательных аппаратов хорошо сохранились навигационные системы, они являются технически исправными. Расшифровка, произведенная специалистами спецслужб Российской Федерации, контента памяти навигационных контроллеров данных беспилотных летательных аппаратов, безапелляционно точно подтвердила, что целью атаки был комплекс зданий резиденции президента Российской Федерации в Новгородской области. Мы хотим вам передать контроллер.
Does anybody in the chat know what uniform this guy's wearing on the right here, the blue uniform? I mean, I would assume some sort of Navy uniform. I don't know. I've never seen a uniform like that. Especially like, let me see if I go back. If you look at the, like, what is that on the cuff? It's like a shield. You would think if it was the Navy, it would have, I don't know, their anchors. I don't know. I've never seen a logo like that. There's the chip. Oh, was it? Oh, U.S. Coast Guard. Is that? Oh, that's a Coast Guard uniform. What the hell is the Coast Guard doing over in Russia? Am I correct in that? Let me check the chat here. Where's Lee Walden? Is that a Coastie uniform? Coast Guard dress uniforms. Oh, that'd be considered a service uniform, I would imagine, right? Why do they make it so hard? That is a Coast Guard uniform. Okay. What the hell is the Coast Guard doing over there in Russia, getting drones from Russian people? What is the Coast Guard doing over there? That is just strange to me. Anybody got any insight on that? Looks like the guy ringing the bell for the Salvation Army. The Coast Guard does not have the nicest uniforms. They're not the nicest uniforms. We all know that honor is bestowed upon our United States Marine Corps and our lovely dress blue Alphas and Bravos. We all know that. Looking for subs in all the wrong places. No, seriously, that is a really good question. Why is it the Coast Guard that is over there accepting a chip that's alleged to be drones hitting in Novgorod. It's not the U.S. coast. It's like 12,000 miles from the U.S. coast. Well, the East Coast, maybe 6,000 from the West Coast. I don't know. Attached to a diplomatic corps? Could be. I still don't. I mean, you're now, when you send over the Coast Guard, you're now intermingling Department of Homeland Security with DOD or DOW, because Coast Guard falls under DHS jurisdiction, not Department of War. I don't know. That's fascinating to me, man. Since 2022, with following this war, I have been learning Russian on accident. I actually wish I knew Russian, to be honest with you. I do. Oh man, here was the story from CNN on Venezuela that I think might have sparked or expedited this operation. This still makes no sense to me, man. So I just realized this is Week in Review, and we covered this week, and I've not covered it yet here. So from CNN, CIA carried out drone strike on port facility on Venezuelan coast. The drone strike targeted a remote dock on the Venezuelan coast that the U.S. government believed was being used by Tren de Aragua to store drugs and move them onto boats for onward shipping. No one was present at the facility at the time it was struck. Now, this is the most bizarre thing to me, and I think we talked about this Tuesday night with Colonel Towner on Badlands Book Club, with Ash. Me and Ash host that show together. U.S. Special Operations Forces provided intelligence support to the operation. U.S. Special Operations Forces, Department of War, Joint Special Operations Command, DOD, DOW, whatever you want to call it, the military. Like I try to wrap my head around this one. The military is providing intelligence to the intelligence who's conducting military operations. Figure that one the fuck out. Anybody? I mean, I understand that special forces can go in there and do the ground level intelligence. You know, these guys are all trained. All the JSOC guys are trained in intelligence gathering, that reconnaissance, you know, all sorts of stuff, surveillance. They know all this stuff. But why is it the CIA that's drone striking this? Why isn't it the Department of War? Why isn't it the DOD? Is it because the CIA is able to operate outside of the guardrails that are put on the Department of War? Perhaps. Should they be allowed to? No. CIA should not be allowed to conduct drone strikes in foreign countries without the president's direct approval, and with, you know, and if the president is giving that direct approval, and you're going against foreign terrorist organizations as declared in his executive order, then go after them with the military. Why is the CIA doing this? I think this was a rogue operation. And it got leaked out, and this is what expedited the extradition of Maduro. Trump acknowledged in an interview on December 26th that the U.S. had knocked out some of the big facilities where ships come from. He said the U.S. attacked in the dock area where they load the boats up with drugs, but he declined to comment whether the attack was conducted by the military or the CIA. So I guess it could have been the CIA. CNN's reporting it was or it could have been the military. CNN is reporting that it was the CIA. All right, where are we going to go next? Let's see. I had this story. We covered that. All right, are we ready to get into the Israeli fraud, the Somali fraud? I think we can do that now. All right, here it goes. This is the biggest story of the week, right? The Somali fraud story is by far the biggest story of the week. Although now it's probably Maduro, to be honest with you. It's probably Maduro now. But this was the biggest story of the week. Let's go ahead and talk about a sponsor, though, before we get into the New York Post story that I'm about to pull up here. You guys have probably noticed that Rumble is growing fast, and it is not slowing down. They're building a real alternative to big tech that puts creators first and actually protects free speech. And now there's Rumble Premium. an easy way to upgrade your experience with Premium. You get ad-free viewing across the platform, no pre-rolls, no interruptions, just the content that you came for. Plus, with Premium members, unlock exclusive content like bonus videos, behind-the-scenes drops, and more from your favorite creators. Right now, Rumble is offering $10 off an annual subscription. Just go to rumble.com/premium and use the promo code STUDIO at checkout. Again, that's rumble.com/premium. Promo code STUDIO, no ads, more freedom, and the content that you actually care about. That is the deal. All right. Love Rumble. Love me some Rumble. Support them as best you can, guys. Support the creators that you get your news from, that you get your information from, that you get your narratives from, all that stuff. And support Rumble because they actually have been the free speech champions this entire time. All right. So from the New York Post, Ilhan Omar's husband, $30 million firm, quietly scrubs name from its website as the squad members face mounting questions on sudden wealth amid Minnesota's welfare fraud. So Ilhan Omar, her husband had a firm that had like a couple $1,000s in assets and then balloons out to $60 billion in assets and $30 million valuation. Omar's husband's venture capital firm scrubbed the key officials, including former Obama officials, from their website. Omar went from nearly broke to being worth up to $30 million in just 1 year as a massive up to $9 billion fraud scheme involving the Somali community in her district is unfolding. Close to 90 people have been charged so far, including at least 3 with direct ties to the squad member, though she has not been accused of any wrongdoing. It was Somali-born Omar, who was seen in a resurfaced video last month dishing out food in a restaurant now at the heart of the scandal, who introduced the legislation that critics say paved the way for what the feds have called the largest fraud of the pandemic. This is not the daycare, guys. This is not the daycare fraud. There's so much fraud that you have to daycare gate, feed the hungry gate. We're going to have to start opening up all these new gates to put in front of these frauds that they're totally going to go after. Omar introduced the Meals Act to Congress in 2020, relaxing oversight on government-sponsored children's meal programs during the pandemic, which critics say allowed fraudsters to claim that they served millions of meals without any verification while pocketing millions of dollars in government subsidies. Shortly after the scheme played out, Omar's husband, Tim Minette, a political consultant, launched Rose Lake Capital, not to be confused with Rosemont Seneca, a venture capital management firm in 2022. The company's value went from nearly $0 in 2023 to between $5 and $25 million in just a year, and touted its officers $60 billion in previous assets under management. Rose Capital had less than $1,000 in assets in 2023. So from 2023 to right now, from $1,000 to $60 billion. That is an amazing. That's like Nancy Pelosi just blushed at that. Between September and October, when federal prosecutors announced charges against eight more individuals, including 6 of Somali descent, for their roles in the welfare scheme, the names and bios of Rose Lake Capital's 9 officers and advisors were removed from the website. None of them were charged in the fraud. The names include lobbyist and former Obama ambassador to Bahrain, Adam Areli, former senator and Obama ambassador to China, Max Baucus. That sounds like a spy name, Max Baucus. DNC Finance Chair Associate Alex Hoffman, former DNC Treasurer William DeRoe, and former ex-CEO of Amalgamated Bank, Keith Mestrick. Amalgamated Bank is considered the, quote, institutional bank of the Democratic Party. Minette's other business, a California winery, a failed venture in 2023, is suddenly worth between $1 million and $5 million in 2024. A windfall of 9,000%. It's funny how that happens. I think there's one more thing I wanted to highlight in here. Maybe not. Nope. Isn't that like against the religion for them to be showing that much skin, like the arms and everything else? I thought they weren't allowed to do that. I don't know. The fraud's everywhere. So that's the Feeding the Hungry program. That's not the Somali daycare fraud. There's just tons of fraud in Minnesota. And it's everywhere. It's not exclusive to Minnesota. Minnesota's just getting the run through right now. Here's the Nick Shirley clip going to the daycares.
I knocked on the door, and to my surprise, somebody actually answered the door.
Hello? Can we speak? I would like to check a child in the daycare. Can I speak to a manager?
Try later.
Where can I get paperwork to file for my son? I wanted to put my son Joey in daycare.
And after a few questions, the lady went silent.
Looks like little Joey Shirley ain't going to daycare here. And now where are we going?
Now we're going to Sweet Angel Childcare.
We're in the middle of a strip mall here inside of this neighborhood.
In fiscal year 2025, this facility, which has its license for 74 kids, was paid $1.26 million in tax money. And there are no kids. And all the facilities are the same way, all of them.
Let's see if anyone opens.
Yeah, let's see.
Once again, I tried to find a spot for my son Joey, and they would not open the door.
I want to put my son Joey in daycare. Cuz I need a spot to put my son Joey.
Yes.
Is this your daycare center?
No, I work there. What's happened?
Well, I just want to put a child in daycare, but all the daycare centers seem to be closed. No one's opening the doors.
You work here?
I was, yeah. What's happened?
Where are the kids?
Yeah.
It says it's licensed for 74 children. Right here, state of Minnesota. Where are the kids? They got paid $1.26 million in fiscal year 2025. It says they have a capacity for 74 children.
When?
Where are the kids? Right here. State of Minnesota website. You work here and you don't know?
I don't know. I was there before. I don't know what's going on.
Were there any kids when you worked here?
He's there. Kids there.
How many?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Yeah.
You worked here. Okay, well, then you're not of any help.
Can I put...
So a lot of people have been scrutinizing the Nick Shirley thing. The mainstream Mockingbird media is going hard on him right now. And, I think it's justified. I mean, like CNN was going after him and they did this piece. And the best part is the anchor that was doing the thing is, just completely spinning the story. There was a great kind of rebuttal to it that somebody did going piece by piece. But the best part is the CNN lady sits down and she's like, we called 12 of these child daycares and one of them answered the phone and turns out it's a legitimate daycare. The other 11 didn't answer the phone. She neglects to tell you that they didn't answer the phone. It wasn't a real place. On Badlands Daily last week on Monday, Zach and I called one of the numbers on the sign, on the website for one of these daycares. And it went to Governor Tim Walz. Another one, the next day, we called that one because I wanted to see where that number was going to go, and nobody answered. And this is at 11 o'clock in the morning, Eastern Standard Time, so 10 a.m. their time. And nobody answered. Shocking, right? Nobody answered. So here is a clip of that man, David, and I don't know if we know his full name. I don't know if he's made that public yet or not. But him and Nick Shirley wearing their Quality Leering Center shirts. They got the sign wrong with 1-800-FRAUD, offering $100,000 to anybody that can debunk his information.
No, don't call any parents.
Anybody want to pick me up? You $100,000 if you
$100,000.
You can disprove my information.
Okay, so give me a copy of what you have, and I can.
If you can disprove my information.
100,000. Give it here.
100,000. 100,000. 100,000. Page by
Are you
page.
going page by page? Get going. Come on, girl. Just keep your video on it.
Okay.
And just screenshot it while you're going.
Let me know when you got it.
They got it. Oh, he's going
Okay.
page by page. Just the energy we need in the Twin
If
Cities.
anything on any of these pages is inaccurate, I'll give you $100,000.
Come on, let's
If you
go.
can disprove it.
I'm trying to
Okay, you got that page? Here's the next page.
He's showing them page
You got it? Everybody got it?
Yeah.
Hey,
Okay, $100,000 offer. Prove me wrong. Anybody pick me up on it?
Oh, yeah.
If you can't, you have to have verified information.
نمعة ninkaan la iska celi barafa lagu tuuro buuq ku kiciya
All right, so we get the point there. We get the point there. He's offering $100,000 to anybody that can disprove him. I don't know if anybody's taken him up on that offer yet. I'm not sure, but let's keep moving along here. We heard that one. I want to play this clip. This is from the Liz Collin Reports show. This is a former TSA agent who is. This is admitting that laws were allowed to be violated. We have laws in the United States. You can only bring. I think you're limited to bringing $10,000 cash at a time outside of the country. Outside of the country, you can fly domestically with as much money as you'd like, but outside of the country, I think you're limited to $10,000 cash. Listen to this story.
Thank you, Liz. I applaud you and Alpha News. We appreciate that. I have to say, though, this sounds like something out of a spy movie. People going through security and getting on planes with suitcases filled with millions of dollars in cash. Tell us what you've actually seen as a TSA agent during the time you worked there. Well, I've actually seen a lot of things, but the most shocking is exactly that. I saw suitcases filled with millions of dollars of cash, and the couriers were always Somali men traveling in pairs. And they got through the checkpoint. It just really absolutely blew my mind the first time you open a suitcase and you see millions of dollars of cash. And typically what would happen is a Leo or a law enforcement officer would come, check their credentials. I don't know what kind of questions they asked them, but their IDs were always documented, and probably their plane tickets as well. So there is a trail of that out there. And I would believe with all the cameras at the airport that if they started there, they could probably find each and every individual that brought money through the checkpoint.
Obviously, this seems suspicious, if not alarming, given what seems to be a pattern here. So you're talking about millions of dollars flying out of Minneapolis, and you think it happened about every week or so? Is that right?
So it certainly seemed like it happened every week. The suitcases came in, and it was always, the MO was always two Somalian men traveling in pairs. Sometimes they both had suitcases. And so the process was, as a TSA agent, we would pull the bag, and then we'd bring them to a private screening room. And we would open the suitcase and make sure that that's all it was stacks of cash.
Oh, we would open the suitcase and make sure that they were just breaking one law, the law of taking money. And the reason they do that is so you can't launder money through offshore accounts. You can't take cash out to, foreign countries and put it into foreign banks and then, clean that money, bring it back into the United States, all that kind of stuff. That's all that's there for. So two Somali men weekly bringing millions of dollars of cash out, and TSA is just like, I don't see it. What are you talking about? I don't see it. This woman, and I don't want to judge somebody. I saw a new case. She looks like a Bond villain. Fair enough. But she doesn't strike me as, some MAGA Republican for sure. I don't know. I mean, can you judge somebody based on how they look? If I had to, I would not say that she is a conservative, especially if she's in Minnesota. But, who knows? Still concerning. Millions of dollars. So if this is happening with those two people that she's blowing the whistle on, how many other people is this happening with? How many? Because, if these are Somali men that are taking government subsidies and laundering them out of the country into a foreign country, I would assume Somalia. How much of that is ending up in Somalians' hands? How much is ending up in the Somali government's hands? How much is ending up in the CIA's hands? How much is ending up in the hands of the stay-behind units for Gladio that are overthrowing regimes, that are on standby? The payments for the economic hitmen. This is the whole funding apparatus right here. Millions of dollars going over weekly. It's not like one time $1 million got through. No, weekly. She says over $1 billion from what she's seen. Corruption, man, down to the core. And so what is New York doing? New York is looking like it's moving in the direction of childcare plans. Hochul throws weight behind Ma'am Donnie's multi-billion-dollar universal childcare plan, but doesn't say who's going to pay for it or how. Well, you just need to make sure that you have the people that are going to benefit. Oh, is this Maria Corina Machado, who President Trump said is not liked in Venezuela and he's not spoken to her? Yeah. $5 billion questionable rental assistance under Biden revealed, including thousands of deceased tenants and non-citizens. I mean, it's almost like the corruption is just, unbelievable. It just, the whole system is completely broken. And this is why we're $37 trillion in debt while all these people continue to, benefit from these subsidies, and nobody's ever held accountable. We played the Scott Jennings clip yesterday. We definitely have played it several times throughout the week on my shows on Badlands. And, where he says that nobody's ever held accountable. And that can kind of tie into these next two clips real quick. These two clips went viral from a press conference that was held last week. And, again, I'll tell you guys the same story I talked about on Friday. This is not, the clip doesn't do this justice. Now, this woman right here, it is what it is. She says fraud and freaks out. Shows off her nice, expensive engagement ring as she's talking about not being able to afford childcare.
If childcare is cut, I'm unable to work or go to school. I understand fraud is bad.
That is a nice diamond. That's bigger than my wife's, and I don't get any government subsidies. Like the realization, let's watch this in slow-mo. The realization is the most genuine thing I've ever seen. Watch her eyes just do like the what?
Yeah. Fraud is bad.
What? What did I just say? Don't look to her, honey. She ain't going to save you. Oh, look at all those people out there. I'm out. I'm taking my 5-carat ring and I'm getting the bleep out of here. This is the one that's the most interesting, though. That one's just, it is what it is. It is what it is. This one is the one that's most interesting because people played the clip of her, kind of doing the same thing, although not nearly as dramatic. But listen to what she says afterwards. And it's exactly what Scott Jennings says. It's exactly what we've been saying here on this network, on Badlands, that we say on Badlands, that I've been saying, for a long time, that nobody has ever held accountable.
And I do see some signs over here that say stop fraud, and I agree, stop it. There are wait lists for these programs that are years long. There is fraud, the fraud that is occurring is not at the hands of families.
Whoa, hold on.
We need long. There is fraud, the fraud that is occurring.
Okay, there was like a glitch there the first time I played it, and I just want to make sure that they didn't edit something out. So, okay, let me go back. Well, I'll just keep playing it.
Is not at the hands of families. We need to be looking at who's in power, who's making decisions, who's guarding the purse strings of our tax dollars, my tax dollars too, and making sure that children have places to go that are safe for them to learn, parents can go to work, and providers can keep their doors open. That's right. That's what I have to say. I went a little off script. Thank you.
There it is. That's what I have to say. I went a little off script. That was not something they wanted to hear because there's Minnesota legislators behind her there who are the benefactors of this, benefactors of stolen elections, benefactors of government corruption, benefactors of these money laundering operations. And they probably weren't too happy with her going off script and saying, when is somebody powerful going to be held accountable? It's not the families. It's not the, the people at the ground level. Those are the ones that always get in trouble. And we always celebrate it as, oh, look, we took care of the fraud. No, you didn't take care of the fraud. It's like if there's an ant pile and you have ants in your house and you see the ants, going after something in the food and you kill that little cluster of ants. We took care of the ant problem. No, you didn't. You took care of the worker ants. You didn't take care of the queen. You didn't take care of the mound. You just took care of the worker ants. You brushed them away so that it gives the appearance that the problem is not gone. Until you get to the queen, the worker ants are just going to come out and go to a different place. They're just going to go somewhere else and take whatever they want somewhere else. That's the same thing we're doing here. And we celebrate it. Oh, we had 90 arrests already in the Somali fraud case. Okay. Who are they? Who are the people that are being arrested now? Because this has been going on. Let me see if I got the clip. I think I do. I know I do. Yeah. Here we go. This is 2018. This is 8 years ago now.
Agencies closed Baraka Child Care Center yesterday morning while investigators executed a search warrant. It's one of 10 being investigated for financial misconduct of the state's child care assistance program. WCCO's Jennifer Mayerly shares where that money would have gone instead.
Nearly 2,400 kids are on the waiting list for Minnesota's Child Care Assistance Program. It helps low-income families pay for child care. Daycares are given money per child. But right now, state agencies are investigating financial fraud at 10 different centers, including Baraka Child Care Center in Minneapolis.
So where there's been these totally fraudulent operators and stealing money. And so high time. And they should crack down on more.
As part of the investigation, the BCA and Secret Service spent hours at this home in Columbia Heights, combing through it and collecting evidence. A relative told WCCO,
they are good family, they work hard, that's all.
The raid at Baraka focuses on fraudulent billing of the state assistance program. A child care provider investigations unit formed in 2014 to investigate similar cases has already closed 12 child care centers.
So the latest
12 child care centers in 2014 to 2018, and you still haven't gotten to the root of the problem.
Care scam has been to have 100 people enrolled, 100 kids enrolled in your program, have 10 show up, bill for the 100.
That happened in several cases that resulted in a conviction. In one, the criminal complaint reveals investigators set up cameras to capture kids who entered and exited. Over a 2-week period in 2014, the daycare billed for 950 children who did not attend the center, resulting in $51,000.
Okay, we can kind of stop that there. They're not going to go into anything, anything else really on that. Where are the elected officials that are allowing this fraud to continue, and they're not going in there and doing something about it? They put these safeguards in place every time somebody gets caught. Oh, well, we're going to really double down this time and get really hard on rooting out the fraud. Meanwhile, the fraud is rampant, and also we're paying for the rooting out of the fraud. So we're paying the agents and the investigations and the jurors and the judges and the criminal justice system that they have to go through. And we're not doing anything to effectuate change. Like I said, it's an ant pile. The ants are just going to move on to another location and do the same thing over there. The foot soldiers are going to keep being imported into our country and permitted to go about doing this wherever the hell they want. It's just, I went on OnlyLands Friday night and blackpilled pretty hard on that, man. And the tax revolt thing that's going around, I'm there, man. Like, you guys, I'm sorry. You could come after me and say, hey, that's against the law to talk like that. Yeah, it's also against the law to allow billions upon billions of dollars of our tax money to go out, but further to sue to stop the federal government from trying to get accountability to where those tax dollars are going. When 20 states are suing the federal government because the federal government wants to audit SNAP for the first time ever. For the first time ever, the federal government wants to audit the SNAP rolls and the SNAP beneficiaries at state level, and the states say no. Then just tell them no more money then. But they can't do that because then they turn around and sue and say that the federal government can't do that. Let's go back to pre-Creature of Jekyll Island, pre-16th Amendment, pre-Federal Reserve, where the federal government had to go to the states and ask them for money, if they needed to raise an army, if they needed to, do something abroad, if they had a crisis that they had to respond to. They had to ask the states first. And if the states refused, then they could temporarily levy a tax against the people. We'd pay the tax, we'd pay for what we needed, and then the federal government would go about being irrelevant once again. But no, we continue to pay taxes. We continue to allow this federal government to expand and to bring in illegals and to give citizenship. I know I said that March 17th, 2026 is when the TPS for Somalis expire. Well, I didn't know this. I think it was either Chris or Gordon or Ash or somebody told me. There's only like 705 people, allegedly, Somalis, that have come over on TPS. I find that really hard to believe. But if you Google it and look it up, there's only 700 some odd Somalis that are here on TPS status. So how the hell are the rest of them all here? Is this a narrative deployment prior to the birthright citizenship? Where are we now at the point where we allowed so many Somalis in during the Clinton administration, the Mogadishu, during that whole debacle? Are we now at the point where the children, the anchor babies, are now U.S. citizens, and they're benefiting from this as U.S. citizens, but they're here, from illegal parents, and because they're born here, now they're citizens. I looked this up this morning. Anybody? Ooh, there's 666 people watching. Somebody join or leave. Prefer to join, because then we can only go up. Otherwise, we'd have to hit 666 again. Can somebody tell me? Take a wild guess. How many European Union countries have birthright citizenship? There we go. 668. There we go. How many European Union countries? Is it 1 to 5, 5 to 10, or all of them? 669. There we go, New K's. You're 10 seconds behind me. Any guesses? I know it's a little slow, guys. 10-second delay. I wish there was a way to get rid of the 10-second delay. Yeah, it jumped up, guys. There's a 10-second delay. Bitch Mobile or Bitch Mobile. Bitch Mobile, Bitch Mobile, whichever one. 0. 0 European Union countries have birthright citizenship. But we do. It's crazy, man. So why do elected officials allow this to continue to happen? Probably because of this. This is the lieutenant governor of Minnesota. Her name is not Abdullah Mohammed. Nothing. It is Fatima. No, it is Flanagan. Flanagan's, great place for ribs. If you live in Florida, you know what's up with that. Flanagan's. Most likely Irish, right?
Assalamu alaikum. My name's Peggy Flanagan. I am the Lieutenant Governor of Minnesota, and I'm really honored and humbled to be here with all of you today. I am incredibly clear that the Somali community is part of the fabric of the state of Minnesota.
Part of the fabric of the state of Minnesota. Since when? Since when? Did they Lewis and Clark their asses from the East Coast to the West Coast and decide to stop in Minnesota and settle Minnesota? They're the fabric of Minnesota. Why do these people do this? All right. I'm going a little long on that. We'll probably, two things I do have to hit. So Washington State has also uncovered some of this quote unquote Somali fraud. And, I actually did some digging on this on my own, and there's a inland auditing on YouTube went around in a small community and was knocking on doors of home daycares and trying to, and one of them appeared legit. Like he knocks on, I think, 11 doors, and one of them was legit. You could see when they opened the door, they were friendly, spoke good English. They were Somalian or some sort of Muslim. There were kids in there. They had toys and everything else. There were kids in there playing, and the house looked like it was dedicated to a daycare. The whole room that you could see on camera was daycare themed. It wasn't like a normal living room and kids were just playing in the living room. The whole thing looked like a daycare. So legit. All the other ones, none of them appeared to be legit. They wouldn't answer the door, or when they did answer the door, they told them to kick rocks, that kind of thing. They ended up calling the cops and saying all this shit. So I went just to try and confirm some of the stuff that he was talking about on that, because you could see the addresses. He posted the addresses and all that stuff. And it's pretty crazy, these houses. So this is how it works in Washington State. And you look at these houses, and what appears to be potentially happening is you will have two people living next door to each other. Person A has 4 or 5 kids. Person B has 4 or 5 kids. Person A and B get together and get home licensed for home daycare for the state, subsidized, meaning they're getting paid by the government for this service. Person B will list person A's kids as their enrollees in their daycare, and person A will list person B's kids as the enrollee in their daycare, and they intermingle. They intertwine, and they watch each other's kids, and they're getting, 4 kids. I think 4 kids will net you about $290,000 a year for in-home, at-home daycare. $290,000 a year from the government for you to watch your kids. And then on top of that, if you really want to get ticked off, the place that gentleman for IAM Inland Auditing was going around, I think it's called like IAM Free, I believe, is the YouTube channel. So I am free, but IAM is one word. The part that will really tick you off is the neighborhood that he was walking around in was all state-funded housing. So not only are these people making $290,000 a year, baby, and that's for the 4 kids. You combine them all, and it's more. It's $600,000, $700,000. Not only are they making that money off of babysitting their own children, they're living in government-funded housing. They have no bills, and the government is giving them multiple 6-figure income sources. So the Attorney General of Washington State put this out. My office has received outreach from members of the Somali community after reports of home-based daycare providers being harassed and accused of fraud with little to no fact-checking. We are in touch with the State Department of Children, Youth, and Families regarding the claims being pushed online and the harassment reported by daycare providers. Showing up on someone's porch, threatening or harassing them isn't an investigation. Neither is filming minors who may be in the home. This is unsafe and potentially dangerous behavior. I encourage anyone experiencing threats to call blah, blah, blah. Now, just to be clear here, I have never once seen any video of anybody being threatening or harassing doing this work. As Sheba Rista says, play the victim. Bingo. Play the victim. Nobody is harassing these people from what I've seen on video. They don't have their own video to put out there. I haven't seen anything harassing. Now, Washington State defines a public place does not include a private residence. So your home is not a public place. When you're in a public place, you have no assumption to the right of privacy, right to privacy. So in other words, if I'm outside of my own home and somebody videotapes me acting a fool, that's fine. They're not violating any of my rights by recording me if I'm in public. If I'm in my own home, you have an expectation of privacy, whether it's phone taps, surveillance cameras, whatever the case might be. Doesn't mean they still won't try and get you from the street or something like that. It's stupid. But that's not the case here. A public place does not, and this is Washington State Legislator RCW 70.160.20. A public place does not include a private residence unless the private residence is used to provide licensed child care, foster care, adult care, or other similar social services on the premises. So the Attorney General can fuck all the way off, because until you show me something and show us something of these journalists harassing anybody, they are well within their right. In fact, it's their duty to hold these accountable. These are not private residences if they're offering licensed daycare. They are public places by your own law. And they need to be held accountable. We are a country that is $37 fucking trillion in debt. And we're seeing billions of dollars potentially being handed out to people who their status in this country is questionable. And we're just supposed to be okay with it because the attorney general told us knock it off. Fuck you, dude. We are done with this shit. We are done with this. This is crazy, man. Flying Storm says Russia's Coast Guard. No, it's U.S. Coast Guard in that video. It said, like, I did see the name tape well enough to read U.S. Coast Guard. That's what tipped me off to him being U.S. Coast Guard. Let's see. Where else are we going to go? So we're getting a little bit of movement, I guess. Deputy Secretary Jim O'Neill said they've frozen all HHS funding to Minnesota for childcare. That's what that press conference we played earlier, the fraud one, that's what the meltdown was about here. I do think it's interesting. It's been pointed out. I think Ash pointed it out on Badlands Daily that Jim O'Neill is a one of the Peter Thiel alumni, you know, the Palantir alumni. So it is what it is. AG Bondi put out, you know, the token. We got the people on the ground level, and is going around bragging about, you know, the people that they've arrested. Feeding Our Future, the largest COVID-19 fraud case, talks about all sorts of things here. People that were arrested, jury bribery, paying jurors $120,000 in cash, leaving it at their houses to not convict the people that are accused here. An autism Medicaid scheme that's just sick. Medicaid fraud here. Like, these are all great things. These are all great things. Needs to go higher. Needs to go higher. This is a big story. NBC News. Judge rules basic Medicaid data can be shared with ICE. And this is big. I said earlier that the federal government, I was talking about the SNAP benefits and how the governors of certain blue states and one red state, Nevada, are suing to stop any transparency with the federal government for the money that the federal government's giving them, but it can't be audited or anything. Yeah, that's bonkers. This is a movement that's going to show, this is a step that's going to show, I think the government's going to be successful. They should absolutely be successful, but I think this is kind of proof and point that the government's going to win these cases against the SNAP, against the SAVE Act, against the citizenship voter rolls, verifying citizenship on the voter rolls. I think they're going to be successful in that. And when they are successful in that, we'll be cracking down on the fraud. I'm sure it's just going to be the low-level foot soldiers, the pawns on the chessboard. You're not going to see any knights or any rooks or any bishops or a queen or a king taken down, just a bunch of pawns. And you'll just keep repopulating the board with more and more pawns. And, it's big. It basically says that the federal government can receive like biological information, basically no medical information, but all the information about whether they're citizens and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, that's a good win. It's a good win. It's indicative of what's to come, I'm sure. Let's see, where are we going to go next? Let's do another sponsor real quick. And let's talk about AIM controllers. I love the game, man. You seen John's new gaming show? John's got a gaming show on Badlands. I might be joining him here pretty soon on that. I think it'll be fun. But are you ready to level up your game? AIM controllers is where custom meets unbeatable value. And right now it's the best deal of the year. We start with official Sony and Xbox controllers, fully compatible with console and PC, no functionality loss. Then you go wild with custom features like smart bumpers, paddles, grips, stick height, custom buttons, even design your own PS5 snap panels. And here's the part that no one else is doing. Lifetime warranties on all modified parts. That's right, a lifetime warranty. What other company does that? Exactly. Normally, a fully loaded setup could run you $400, but during our one price promo, it's $209 or just 182 euros, no matter how many features you add. Use promo code RUMBLE at checkout and unlock it this is your sign. Go to aimcontrollers.com and build the last controller that you will ever need. $209 is actually a really good deal, considering that controllers themselves are usually like $60. So you're paying $140 for a lot of customization. And if you game, like the ergonomics of normal controllers are not very good. And so upgrading and getting those kinds of things, I may or may not be buying one. I'm not going to tell you guys if I am, because then y'all run to John, and when I kick his ass at Battlefield 6, you guys will be like, he cheated. Okay, let's where are we going to go from here? Talk a little bit about Epstein, because why not, right? President Trump put this out. He says, now there are 1 million more pages of Epstein found. The DOJ is being forced to spend all of its time on this Democrat-inspired hoax. When do they say no more and work on election fraud, etc.? The Dems are the ones who worked with Epstein, not the Republicans. Release all of their names, embarrass them, and get back to helping our country. The radical left doesn't want people talking about Trump and Republican success. Only a long ago dead Jeffrey Epstein. Just another witch hunt. We did get this disturbing story here about Prince Andrew. This is an actual accusation of, molestation taking place in Ireland, I believe, or at the Travelers Lodge near. Is it in Ireland? I'm not sure. But we read this story. I'm not going to read it now. It's kind of graphic, but it's pretty disgusting. It's basically saying that a father was selling a son or daughter. It doesn't say the sex. I think it says that they were wearing a skirt at some point, but selling them to pedophiles at these parties, ring parties. And, people like Prince Andrew were allegedly in attendance, and just absolutely heinous shit. Just heinous. But then we got this story. DOJ seeks to enlist 400 attorneys to review more than 5 million pages. So President Trump's Truth Social just got multiplied by 5. There are now 5.2 million total pages that still have to be reviewed, and they're saying that it's going to take at least 400 attorneys. They've got 200 already doing it. It's going to take at least 400 attorneys to get this all done. There we go. All right. I think that should do it for today. Let me see if there's anything that I am missing. Oh, gotta play this. This is just classic. Jack Smith was deposed, and this is the video of his deposition.
As I sit here right now,
this is a video of his deposition. This man is absolutely insane, and this is further support for the idea that if you go 0-8 at the Supreme Court, like he did in the Virginia case against the governor, you should be disbarred and never allowed to practice law in the United States again.
Can't remember specific conversations. I do remember that we knew that a sort of First Amendment defense would be part of the case. And I think when I mentioned to you earlier about how to frame the case, we want to make clear that this was not about trying to interfere with anyone's First Amendment rights, that this was a fraud. And as you know, under Supreme Court precedent, fraud is not protected by the First Amendment. And so in my mind, it was important.
Fraud is not protected, but calling something fraud is protected. Fraud is not protected under the First Amendment. I can say it's a fraud. I can call you a fraud. I can say the election was fraudulent all day long. The only part that's illegal is the fraud. Arrest them, not Trump.
To make that clear in the indictment, and that's why when we litigated this issue before the district court, we prevailed.
But the president's statements that he believed the election was rife with fraud, those certainly are statements that are protected by the First Amendment, correct?
Absolutely not. If they are made to target a lawful government function and they're made with knowing falsity. No, they're not.
Nothing he said there is true. Nothing he said there is true. Absolutely not. You can't say it's fraud if you're targeting a government function. I can say that all day long. SNAP, fraud. Child daycare in Minnesota, fraud. I can say that all day long. Whether or not it's true doesn't matter. Despite that, it is true. But I can say that all day long. Jack Smith, this is a guy that is not only licensed to practice law in this country, but was the special investigator that was picked to go after President Trump. And those are his beliefs, that calling something fraud is somehow violates the First Amendment. No, dude, you are an absolute retard. No other way to describe him. No other way to describe him.
That was my point about fraud not being protected by the First Amendment.
I mean, there's a long list of disputed elections. I mean, the election of 1800, 1960, year 2000, where candidates believe they were wronged by because they lost. And there's a long history of candidates speaking out about they believe there's been fraud, there's been other problems with the integrity of the election process. And I think you would agree that those types of statements are sort of at the core of the First Amendment rights of a presidential candidate, right?
There is no historical analog for what President Trump did in this case. As we said in the indictment, he was free to say that he thought he won the election. He was even free to say falsely that he won the election. But what he was not free to do was violate federal law and use knowingly false statements about election fraud to target a lawful government function. Mm-hmm. That he was not allowed to do. And that differentiates this case from any past history.
Meanwhile, everything President Trump said about that lawful government function was unlawful. I mean, all the work that was the things that have come out, the work that we've done in Georgia and everything else. This is going back to the Raffensperger call that kind of incited all this. It's not an unlawful function, guys. It's not. Sorry, it's just not. And that's absurd that man is allowed to practice law in the United States with those types of thoughts, like fundamental constitutional law. You can't call something fraud if it's a government function. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. That's not even like a challenging one. I mean, that's law schools are no longer teaching law. They're teaching how to subvert the Constitution and get around it, and how to use the Constitution to subvert law. Twisting and turning. President Trump vetoes a bill to fund an Arkansas Valley conduit in Colorado, and this has the lefties freaking the bleep out, saying that this is the retribution for Tina Peters' imprisonment, her unjust political imprisonment. President Trump put this out in response to the veto, and let me open this up in a different tab so I can zoom in. He says, I'm returning here without my approval, H.R. 131, that finished the Arkansas Valley Conduit Act. The AVC is a water pipeline currently being built to provide municipal and industrial water to communities in southeastern Colorado. It was originally authorized as part of the Frying Pan Arkansas project in a bill signed by Kennedy in 1962. For decades, it was unbuilt, largely because the AVC was economically unviable. Under the original plan, the cost of the project were to be initially funded by the federal government, but repaid by local users with interest over a 50-year period following completion of construction. But participants were unable to comply with that repayment obligation. You're getting a service from the federal government. They're building you something that should be built by the state, but the federal government is building it, and they're saying, hey, we're giving you 50 years to pay back the cost of the building by taxing the people, charging the people that are benefiting from it, and they're going to pay us back for it. That's how a business should work. And the federal government in this term here is a business. They're doing something for the state. It's not something that the federal government should do. In 2009, President Obama signed the Omnibus Public Land Management Act of 2009, which not only reduced the payment obligation from 100% to 35%. So now instead of paying 100% of it, we're going to give you 65% off. but also provided that miscellaneous revenues from the Frying Pan Arkansas project at large would count towards the ABC cost share. Even then, construction did not begin until 14 years later, after the state of Colorado authorized $100 million in loans and grants for the project. The current bill would now have the federal government extend the repayment period on the already reduced repayment requirement for an additional 25 years. So they keep moving the parameters of this deal. First, 100% of the loans are going to be paid back over 50 years plus interest. Now it's all, well, then they changed that to 35% is going to be paid back. Then they changed it to, well, it's going to be 35%, but now instead of 50 years, it's going to be 75 years to repay it. Eventually, Trump's got to say enough is enough. Fuck you. Figure it out on your own. Figure it out. The more than $249 million has already been spent on the ABC, and total costs are estimated to be $1.3 billion. 131 would continue the failed policies of the past by forcing federal taxpayers to bear even more of the massive cost of a local water project that, as initially conceived, was supposed to be paid for by the localities using it. Enough is enough. My administration is committed to preventing American taxpayers from funding expensive and unreliable policies, ending the massive cost of taxpayer handouts, and restoring fiscal sanity is vital to economic growth and the fiscal health of the nation. For these reasons, I cannot support it. I'd love to think that part of it has to do with Tina Peters, and maybe it does. Maybe it does. But President Trump outlined right there why he's not doing it. You change the parameters. You give a bad deal for the people on something that should be done at the local level, should be done at the state level, but it wasn't. So you reach out to the federal government. You negotiate terms back in 1962. Those terms are renegotiated to screw over the American people and put them on the hook for that entire project. And then on top of that, you extend it again, and you do all of this through one of these omnibus 1,000-page long bills that nobody reads. You sneak it in there, and you continue to rape and pillage the American people. We can't pay for this anymore, guys. $37 trillion in debt. The only reason that we don't have the same inflation problems like they have in Venezuela is because we have more money that we can print. We just print more and inflate the money even more, or dilute it even more, devalue the money even more, so that the middle class gets closer and closer to the lower class. The lower class gets closer and closer to death, and the rich keep getting all this money put into their accounts by state federal legislators. Here you go. Here's the omnibus bill that's going to give your company or your business a couple $100 million or some sweet lucrative tax cuts. Yeah, it's all a fucking scam, man. All right. Mainstream media is dying. We covered this Friday. 2.7 million viewers on Fox. They're up 11%. Okay, fair enough. MSNBC down 27%. CNN down 16%. Let's go. I'm here for it. You know, I'm not a fan of Fox News. I don't like Fox News. I don't want to see them successful. But, you know, as I told Chris Paul on Friday, that's a demographic that we can reach. You know, the conversation I talked about earlier in the show today, the conversation I had earlier with family members, the ones that were receptive are the Fox News watchers. They're the ones that would watch that. The ones that are not receptive are the MS Now and CNN watchers. They're not ready to be awakened yet. So, you know, it is what it is. Last clip we'll play, I believe. This was just hilarious. This is I'm sorry we sucked for the last, 30 years. We've gotten every story wrong. We completely screw you over. We're completely beholden to the big pharma companies that prop us up and keep us running, and the federal campaign dollars that keep us running for advertisements and everything else. But now we're going to be all about you. We're going to say, fuck all those people that have been funding us for 20, 30 years, manipulating you, propagandizing you, putting the information out, controlling the dissemination of the information. We are now going to cast those people off, and we're going to be all about you.
A lot has changed since the first person sat in this chair. But for me, the biggest difference is people do not trust us like they used to. And it's not just us, it's all of legacy media. And I get it. I get it because I've been hearing about it from just about everybody for more than 20 years as I've traveled America on this assignment or that. My mom's neighbors in West Virginia, my own neighbors in New York City, thousands and thousands of conversations in between. Sometimes people want to talk to me about our coverage of NAFTA or the Iraq War. Other times it's all about Hillary Clinton's emails or Russiagate. Or more recently, COVID lockdowns, Hunter Biden's laptop, or the president's fitness for office. The point is, on too many stories, the press has missed the story because we've taken into account the perspective of advocates and not the average American. Or we put too much weight in the analysis of academics or elites and not enough on you. And I know this because at certain points, I have been you. I have felt this way too. I felt like what I was seeing and hearing on the news didn't reflect what I was seeing and hearing in my own life, and that the most urgent questions simply weren't being asked. So here's my promise to you today and every time you see me in this chair. You come first, not advertisers, not politicians,
That's what she said.
not corporate.
I can't stand this shit. This is so stupid. This is so stupid. That was probably the most appropriate. That's what she said. Ever. That's what he said. Getting a little carried away here. I'm not going to say anything more. He said it. He said it. You come first. All right. I did go through some of the panels because I have like 1,000 tabs open, and I do want to play this one tab because it's notable that President Trump retruthed this. And let me make sure that he retruthed this. I'm pretty sure he did, but I just want to make sure because this is pretty incredible if he did. He went on a truth frenzy yesterday. Oh my goodness. I'm going to have to spend an hour on his Truth Social today. Yep, he did. Okay, so we'll go ahead and play it directly from his truth. Here it is. Without volume.
Do you guys remember Melissa Hortman, the Minnesota state rep that had her life taken from her by Tim Walz's aide after voting to take away health care from illegal immigrants?
She was unalived in her home by Vance Bolter, who was later caught after a manhunt. He then sent a letter to the FBI and Kash Patel saying that it was Tim Walz who forced him to do it. Both Vance Bolter and his wife worked for Tim Walz for years in different states. Was Melissa Hortman unalived because she voted against a multi-billion-dollar money laundering fraud? The fraud that she voted against that heavily implicated illegal aliens, specifically Somalians, who have been racketing this kind of child care, health care rackets and cooperating with our corrupt government. And today it's breaking news that the money laundering scam in Minnesota of billions of dollars for healthcare offices, child daycares, Medicaid, and various forms of care agencies. These money laundering frauds have been exposed. And it all comes back to Tim Walz.
I did what leaders do. I stepped up and I got the job done for the people of Minnesota.
Very shortly after this, she was unalived in her home by Vance Bolter. Vance Bolter and his wife worked for Tim Walz for years in different states.
All right. So the Vance Bolter Praetorian security guard is back in the news. This was a story that I was very much I very much enjoyed reporting. Not because of the context of the story, but because of the slip-ups along the way on this. So the story with Vance Bolter, for those that don't recall, he donned a mask, a bald Walter White Breaking Bad looking mask, put on police uniforms, got in his security car, which was, outfitted with lights, cop lights, police lights, and, all that stuff, unmarked, I believe, drove to this legislator's house, shot her and her husband, then drove to another house, shot 2 more people. Cops engaged him at the second house. He fled out the back door of the house, was on the run for several days, Then we start getting all the stuff from the, statement of facts and the police reports and all that. We find out that a female officer pulled up alongside him while he was sitting in his car at like 2:00 in the morning out front of somebody's house, pulls up alongside, looks in the car, sees a man sitting behind the wheel, flips her lights or, tries to get his attention. He doesn't respond. He's non-responsive. And she leaves him there. She doesn't like, what the hell's going on here? Why does this guy look like he's wearing a mask? Why is he not responding to a cop car right next to him if he's in a cop car himself? What's going on here? Nope. Just drive away. Ignore him. Guy goes on to kill 2 more people or 1 more person and injured 1. Then the guy's on the run. While he's on the run, he goes to a bus station. So from that house, when he runs out the back door, he runs to a bus station. He meets a man there that is apparently a stranger. He negotiates at the bus station. He negotiates with the stranger who's at a bus station to buy his car, because that's what you do when you have a car. You ride the bus at a bus terminal. Negotiates to buy his car and his electric bike, because that's, again, what you do when you don't have a car, or when you have a car and an electric bike, you ride the bus. Okay. So Bolter and this man go to an ATM. He gets in the car with him, drives him to the ATM, pulls out, several $1,000s cash, goes back to his house, buys the car, buys the e-bike, and disappears. Because that sounds like something out of a freaking spy movie. You meet your handler or, one of your fixers along the way. Yeah, who knows? So then the other interesting part to this is that the wife and I believe her children were stopped driving towards the Canadian border with a gun, and I believe it was $10,000 cash. It might have been a little more than that. Stopped by the sheriffs. Keep in mind, the husband is still at large. The man who assassinated a former Speaker of the House for the Minnesota legislature and I believe a state senator, kills 2 legislators from Minnesota. He's at large. The police run into the family, apparently fleeing the state, or at least the country, maybe at least the state, north towards Canada with a pistol and $10,000 cash, and they don't detain her. They let her go. The sheriff let her go. Interesting. Then we get the letter that shows that, this guy Bolter, who, by the way, Bolter, if you look at his past, he's done like the aid trips, right? He did like the aid trips to like Africa and Ukraine and all the CIA hotbeds. He did these peacekeeping trips over there. I don't know, military training somewhere along the way. The whole story is really bizarre. Then he has a company here in the United States called Praetorian Security, which, if you know anything about the Praetorian Guard, you know damn well that the Praetorian Guard were Caesar's special elite unit that only listened to him. That's it. What Caesar said, that's what they did. That's what they did. They did not listen. If you remember in, did you ever see the Gladiator, Russell Crowe with Joaquin Phoenix? And you remember in the Gladiator at the end when, the Gladiator wins and he does, "Are you not entertained?" And then Caesar, I can't remember his name, Augustus, was it in that? He comes down and Maximus is surrounded by all the people in purple. That's the Praetorian Guard. Caesar says, "Go surround them." The emperor says, "Go surround them." Augustus, not Caesar, whatever his name was. And they're beholden completely and totally to the emperor. And so Praetorian Security Service is a very peculiar name for this guy. In that letter, he says that Tim Walz ordered me to kill Amy Klobuchar, among others. And the Klobuchar thing is allegedly because Walz wanted to be senator. He wanted to be a senator. He wanted her seat specifically. I've always kind of thought, Klobuchar, we're not, big fans of hers, obviously. But I've always thought that Klobuchar has kind of a chip on her shoulder because she was supposed to be the vice president in 2020. And then they kind of kicked her to the side because they needed the token black woman, and they bring in Kamala Harris instead. And as kind of a, consolation prize, Klobuchar gets to be the MC at the inauguration, which is to me more insult to injury, salt over the wound, than it is consolation, consolation prize. But that's what she gets, MC, the inauguration. She gets to be front and center and do all the speaking and everything else, whatever. Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a chip on her shoulder. And so, she was the one that was expendable. She was the one that Tim Walz could take out, I guess. I don't know. Before we wrap up the show, I do have a Rumble rant that I have to get to. So thank you, AH13. We did yesterday's show, number 24, top 25 on the leaderboard. Look at that. With only 10,000 views. Proud of that. We even got Viva Fry there. Where is he? Viva is he lives like half an hour north of me. And this is what my scenery looks like. He lives like 30 minutes north of me up in Boca or in that area, Palm Beach area. South Florida. We'll call it South Florida. There we are. Appreciate that. Number 24. All right. So again, if you have not done so yet, please smash that thumbs up. A little over 700 watching, 266 thumbs up. Let's get me even higher. It's a Sunday. We could probably get top 10. Let's get top 10. How cool would that be? AH13 says, think of paying taxes this way, Brian. Aiding and abetting treason by the American taxpayer. If people would open up to that, though, the revolt would be an absolute. I am with you, man. I am with you. Or woman. I don't know AH13 off the top of my head which way. John Bruno says, Viva's a crown shill. Nah, Viva's a good guy. I've hung out with Viva a few times. He's a good guy. He's still kind of learning the ropes here in America, but he is very curious. He is very receptive. I've had all sorts of conversations. I was at the Mar-a-Lago event that Viva was hosting with John Eastman and Giuliani and General Flynn. And I think Dershowitz was there as well. And I think Jonathan Turley was there. It was a good panel. And Trump came in, and, that's probably the coolest. I was there, I think, with Rachel Alexander. And that's probably the closest I've, gotten to having an exchange with President Trump. Is we thumbs up each other and saluted each other. Not like a full-blown, like, at attention salute, because I'm not in uniform and I didn't have a hat on, but just like a thumbs up as I'm filming him. But so Viva got to introduce him. So Viva's doing the panel. He's the moderator for the panel. And President Trump walks in. He's standing in the back. Nobody even notices him. I saw him because I was in the back. Name drop more. I'm name dropping a lot more, PJ. I'm standing in the back and watching this. There's only like 100 people in the room. It's not a big crowd. It's not a big crowd at all. And President Trump walks in, and I look over, I'm like, holy shit, that's President Trump. And Viva introduces him, cuts the panel and introduces him. Well, after the whole thing was over, him and I were talking, and he's like, man, did I screw up there? I don't know if you want me to introduce him. I don't know if you want me to introduce him, but I saw him back there, and I was like, I didn't know what to do. So I said, ladies and gentlemen, the 45th and hopefully 47th President of the United States, President Donald J. Trump. And it was a really cool event. I absolutely loved that event. And thank you to Rachel Alexander and the Arizona folks for having me at that event. It was the John Eastman documentary release, and it was fantastic. His documentary was great, the Lawfare documentary. All right, so I think that is going to do the show. Smash that thumbs up, please, one more time. Yeah, PJ, you'd be name dropping too, 100%. I don't get to meet too many cool people, but if I had the opportunity to meet President Trump, that would be pretty damn badass. Ultimately, I'd like to play golf with President Trump. That would be a dream come true, but I would settle for shaking his hand and thanking him for what he's doing. Yeah, fake reality. Viva does still think that there's some realism to elections. He's not fully there yet. I should reach out to him and talk to him about having me on to discuss elections. So we'll see. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys all so much for tuning in. I'm going to land this ship here and enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Happy New Year once again to everybody. And yeah, stay frosty. God bless each and every one of you. God bless America. Make the fortune cookie country pay for this.